Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, ACLJ's Senior Counsel for Global Affairs. Mike, I want to go first question to you. You tweeted out this morning that Secretary Kerry, please explain to the American people why you disclosed info about Israeli operations to the Iranian foreign minister. We've known for years you were helping him. Americans deserve to know why. How damaging is this potentially to the United States, Mike?
Jordan, we knew this was going on. I've actually talked about this when I was a Secretary of State. We saw that Secretary Kerry was meeting with Foreign Minister Zarif, and frankly, the meeting's not the problem. If you're just talking about old times or family, that's fine. But clearly now we can see that our worst fears were true. Zarif said to someone he didn't think was going to publish it that he was talking to Secretary Kerry about Israeli operations in Syria. Secretary Kerry needs to explain why Zarif said that. Secretary Kerry denied it this morning, but Zarif was pretty clear. Second, the Zarif acknowledged that he is not an important player in the Iranian hierarchy. He says, Qasem Soleimani was driving everything and overrunning us. We are today, Jordan, sitting with that same group, sitting with the Iranian foreign ministry, trying to give away enormous amounts of U.S. taxpayer money, I am sure, and sanctions relief to people who aren't even decision makers in Iran. We shouldn't negotiate with people who actually can't influence the outcome of how the Iranian regime will behave.
Well, this is Jay. The idea here, Mr. Secretary, is that Zarif tries to downplay his role to deflect the situation. But let's here the practical situation is this: something nefarious has happened here. We have an ally. It's called Israel. They were engaged in, or at least it reported that they were engaged in certain military action. That military action was shared with, according to these reports, a non-ally, the Iranians, who are certainly not an ally. They're an enemy. They are the largest state sponsor of terror. They use proxies all over the Middle East, frankly, all over the world. And the damage this causes, I think, is incalculable.
Jim, imagine today you're trying to make a decision if you're the Israeli government. I don't know the answer. I'm speculating. Imagine you're the Israeli government trying to decide whether you're going to share information with the United States Department of State today. Important information that would relate to the partnership in securing American freedom that Israel and America work on together each and every day. You've got to be concerned that somehow there are senior leaders, and it's not just Secretary Kerry. Remember, the former Secretary of Energy, Ernest Moniz, was meeting with ACM folks too. It'd be interesting to see what he said about those conversations. There are so many things to chase down. I know the ACLJ is hard at work on it, but we need to get answers to these questions. The American people deserve it. And more importantly, as we are continuing to this very moment to be in Vienna, Austria, meeting with these people, we need to understand what those relationships were and why during the Trump administration they were talking about things that had nothing to do with American foreign policy and what the Trump administration was trying to achieve there.
How frustrating was that to you as Secretary of State, knowing that John Kerry and others like you, the former Secretary of Energy, these people were still engaging the Iranians?
I'm not easily frustrated, Jay.
Yep.
But make no mistake about it. We knew it was going on. We tried to convince them that it wasn't appropriate for them to do, and then we just continued to deliver. We had a policy President Trump put in place. We worked on our maximum pressure campaign. We built out the Abraham Accords. We worked with our friends in Israel, the great partners, the rightful Jewish homeland, to deliver security for them and, importantly, for the American people as well.
All right. Again, I think that what we also want to kind of focus in on, Mike, is that we have this kind of back and forth. Is it happening while he's Secretary of State? Is it happening while he is outside of the government? Is it happening under the Trump administration? I mean, I think a lot of people are wondering, is it worse either way? One of those ways, if it was happening while he was Secretary of State or if it was happening as a private citizen. To me, I think it's bad either way. But it is a kind of a question of, was the Obama administration potentially greenlighting the kind of sharing of this information?
Well, they were clearly, Jordan, for the entire 4 years that they were not in office. And by the way, it's the same cast of characters today. Wendy Sherman, Jake Sullivan, Robert O'Malley, the same people who brought you this crazy JCPOA, the crazy Iranian nuclear deal, the same people back in office today. It was very clear that during the out 4 years, the messaging to the Iranians was be patient, will win again, and we'll get back into this deal, and we will give you this pathway to a nuclear weapon, just as we did before. There's no doubt that was the message that was being delivered to Iranian leadership, and in fact, the message that's being delivered to them across the table in Vienna today.
Mike, Colonel Wes Smith, our senior military analyst, has a question for you relating to this whole issue as well. Wes?
Yeah, I'm just curious, Secretary Pompeo, as you look at what's going on and are trying to re-enter the JCPOA, we know it's flawed. We know it ultimately did not keep them from acquiring a nuclear weapon. We know they've cheated 6 ways from Sunday. The real bottom line is Iran cannot be trusted. What do you think, if you could get in the minds of the Biden administration, what's the motivation here? Why are they pushing to re-enter an agreement, apparently being willing to lift sanctions? And some of the sanctions aren't even about the nuclear deal. They're about human rights and other things. Why are they pushing so hard to get back into an agreement with a rogue nation that cannot be trusted? What's their motivation, do you think?
It is inexplainable. Sometimes you can see arguments on the other side and you just simply disagree on this one. It is incomprehensible to me. One of their theories that they say publicly is that we're going to do this deal, and then in the subsequent days and weeks and months, we'll get it. They'll do more. But we got to go back to our old deal before they'll talk to us. It is unimaginable that Iran, after they get what they want from the JCPOA, is going to do something that they give up even more tomorrow. For what reason? There'll be no leverage. And your point's right. They're going to take off terror sanctions on terrorists. It's unexplainable. These are still terrorists. No one denies it. Yet they're going to go lift those sanctions. I cannot explain why or what their motivation is. I hope someday they'll explain that to all of us.
And Mike, yesterday it's been reported that in the Persian Gulf, again, the Iranian ships swarmed U.S. Coast Guard. So this is while they're at the table in Vienna.
What message does that send to the negotiators? It says you can treat the American forces that are in harm's way. We remember when those sailors were captured, and John Kerry essentially apologized to get them back. It seems like a long time ago, but this is history repeating itself.
Yep.
We were clear. President Trump had a message: deterrence. As you get close to our ships, you try and take one of our sailors, we will respond seriously. That's real deterrence. It's American power, and it's how you keep America. And importantly, our friends in Israel and our security partners in the region, the Arab states, it's how you make demonstrations to them that you will have their back, and they too can push back against Iran without fear.
Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, a senior counsel at the ACLJ for Global Affairs. Thanks as always. We appreciate it. Look forward to having you back on